Hello and welcome to the renewed episodes of Past the Calabash. I'm Nachula Wilson, and before I introduce my guest for this episode, if you've listened before to the podcast, you know that we haven't posted anything in quite a while. A lot of developments have taken place in the past 6 months to a year. And one important thing that's come out of that is that we used to be a mainly audio podcast. Going forward, we're going to be more of a video podcast with the main point of contact being our new YouTube channel, which is what you're on now. Another part of the change is that I started this podcast focusing really on entrepreneurship and, businesses and business support across the entire continent, and speaking to people from everywhere on the continent. For this year, I'm going to shift focus and really zone in on Zambia and on what the situation looks like there. I think I might make a short video, maybe like a 5-minute explainer to just talk about why the change in focus for the year. So then, we're kicking off this first video episode with an interview with somebody I found very interesting. Please join me as I have a chat with a wonderful female multi-business owner and entrepreneur whose leather brand I encountered recently in Lusaka. Elaine Smiley's journey spans continents and industries. She moved to Zambia with her family a few years ago after a successful career in healthcare in the US. And now, as a co-owner of Smiley Industries, she runs a luxury leather goods brand, which is what I first met her with through. She runs a real estate company. She has ventured into microfinance and as well as what is more visible to most people, events planning. I was really curious about her journey and really the outside-inside perspective that she could give. But of course, our conversation took many turns. Enjoy. Okay.
Good morning.
So now are we on? Yes, we're on. It's recording. Perfect. It looks very clear to me, like from your end, like the picture quality is really good.
I'm really glad. You look very clear and you look lovely in your whole mustard colors. I love that.
I'm sitting in Accra because I had to come here for some work. And part of the beauty of Accra is all of this. Right? Like you get all of the African print. So I did like a stock up as soon as I arrived.
Now I understand. I actually had a friend bring me some fabric and I got a suit made. I'm actually wearing a suit. I just took off the blazer and it's also Shitenge fabric.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's good. So Elaine, so first of all, thank you so much for making the time
thank you so much.
To be on the podcast. So like I said, I'm very interested in entrepreneurship, right? And in like things like Bongo Hive and the structures that support entrepreneurs and whether or not they work. And then I'm interested in seeing this story from like the ecosystem side, but also from like the entrepreneur's perspective, and I thought like you would be a great person to speak to because you're seeing this from like an outsider in perspective. You've had the outside of Zambia experience and then now you're in the country. And so you can kind of compare and go, actually, it's easier or it's harder or it's how has the experience been, right? Being an entrepreneur in a place like Zambia. So I think a good place to start would be maybe you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you end up in Zambia?
Okay, so hello everyone. So the way that it all unfolded is COVID happened, and prior to COVID, we had a couple of production friends who loved me and my family as an American couple with children who's kind of like having a pretty good life in America, but we wanted something different. And when COVID happened, no matter what they wanted to do, whether or not if they wanted us to go to Ghana, because originally there was a pilot or an option of 4 families going and chucking it all and going to Africa. And I happened to be one of the families selected. But because of the whole 400 years of diaspora, and they wanted to kind of push it out during 2020, 2021, that wasn't our role. Our role was, let's just find a place that would be great for family, and let's get out of America as soon as possible. So we found Zambia, had no idea what Zambia was. Growing up, I think they still called it Northern Rhodesia.
Yes.
And right? They did, right? And I just really had no idea. I've never been to the continent before. I'm Caribbean and South American, but born in New York. And we had this opportunity of going to Africa. My husband decided that he wanted to look at international schools. I wanted a change in career. I was dealing with more of the health and the social care. I used to deal with organ and tissue transplant, and I was dealing with the logistics for New York. Dealing with death and dying, dealing with all of those stressors. I wanted a change, and I felt like Africa would be it. So luckily, we were able to have a show called Coming from America, film our journey.
You know, my daughter and I, Nanji and I we tried to find the actual episodes, but then they were blanked out. So we ended up finding on YouTube, somebody's made a summary of each episode. So like they've done like little snippets from the episodes, and then they've like gone, okay, so this is what's happened in this one, which is quite nice. So my daughter goes, Mama, that's River. She's on the show.
I know. She was so young. That was roughly 2.5, 3 years ago. So the goal is that the show is actually shown on HBO Max, TLC, Hulu, and it just really highlighted us transitioning from an American family to an American family in Zambia. And once we got here, we realized that it was so difficult, but it was easy, meaning I think Zambia is a very good place as an entrepreneur, as a woman, but also as an American or somebody from the West, because it's a very easy assimilation than most other African countries.
Okay, maybe let's dig into that a little bit. So what about it was easier than other African countries?
So again, this was my very first African experience, but we have traveled the continent thus far. And what we've seen that it's more westernized, or it's more open to other cultures coming in and kind of like mixing and influencing the people here. You don't necessarily see all the young people wearing shitenges here, like in some other places, but they're still very cool and fashionable. You know what I mean? You can see that there's not so much of a hard push in regards to having interracial relations. So my husband is a white Jewish man. He tans very well. However, at the end of the day, he's a white Jewish man.
He will stand out in any African country.
Yes, I think that I stand out being who I am here, but he will also stand out more so than me. And whereas I may be more, people might not think that I'm Zambia, but they might think I'm from Tanzania or from the Gambia. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of it's different culturally, but it was also really easy. I came during the time where there was a lot of big development, a lot of push from Germany, a lot of Russian influence, a lot of Chinese influence. So Zambia is a culture that is open to assimilation and also opening for people to come in and move and also kind of become a part of the residency here. So I would say that has been probably one of the easier transitions of coming here versus maybe like some of my screen or my co-hosts for the series where they went to Ghana. Maybe it was a little bit more hustle and bustle, whereas I don't necessarily, I'm in the city of Lusaka. I'm not going to see horses on the road or donkeys on the road. People have their farms, you know what I mean? Or you might find a random chicken, but you already know who property that is because they leave their beautiful fence open and the chickens run out in Zambia versus it being on the road. So it's a little bit more polished. I think that it's a little bit more of a softer life. in Zambia. And I also think it's a little bit more expensive, to be honest with you. I think that the kwacha, especially now, has risen quite a bit in regards to the currency. And
Yes.
you can start feeling that with the dollar.
Yes, actually, that's so I came into Lusaka like the end of 2024, and at that point, Lusaka was cheaper than Accra. Right? It was. I felt the difference. I walked into a supermarket and I could get so much more out of like the equivalent of $100, right, in Lusaka than I could in Accra. But lately, because of the strengthening of the kwacha, now it's just flipped, and all of a sudden, Lusaka feels, for an outside person coming in, more expensive than Accra does. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think that being an entrepreneur, and I'll kind of share how I kind of transitioned into that, being a person who always worked in non-for-profits or advocacy-driven organizations. Like I told you, I used to be one of the logistics people for the organ and tissue transplant program in New York. So coming to Africa as a storyteller for the show about my life, then realizing at the time, this is an amazing place. I mean, it still is to invest in. And I'm luckily that we invested earlier in the kwacha, using the dollar when the dollar was strong, to kind of like start the Smiley Industry Organization. So we have a small company, me and the co-owner and the muse and the person who is the management person to try to like... And I think Gabriel Smiley has become more of the artsy person. I think he found his little craft here. His, coming to Zambia, I think he has always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I don't think he knew how to do that financially in America because it was so expensive to take the risk. But I think when you come in with the dollar, when the dollar was strong, you're able to kind of live a life that you probably always wanted and kind of take a little bit more risk in things that you probably wouldn't have done in Western cultures. So like we have Smiley Industries. Smiley Industries is not only me being as a consultant, but I do event planning that's underneath the entrepreneurship. We have a leather brand company, a luxury leather brand company called Zambia, which we basically source all of the fabric, all of the leather from Zambia itself. We use artisans from Zambia with obviously our designs to kind of make it more westernized and more polished in a way where I can say that we are able to look at the fine print of certain things that maybe a tailor will go, oh, it's okay for you to take, but not quality. Remember the quality checks. And I think that has a lot to do with being an American or being from the Western.
Yes, exactly.
And just having a little bit more quality assurance focus. If that makes sense.
I think it's even just having had many more very competitive brands, right? At your doorstep, luxury, right? Yeah, having seen luxury. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So then we've done microfinancing, we've done, again, the show, we've done events, real estate. And my goal right now as an entrepreneur who has more flexibility is that now I can tap into more of my artistry. And maybe now I can use my art or art forms to also finance my life. You know, the goal is that you don't want to just have savings. You want to have money coming in. You want to be able to grow as an individual. And I think that's the key thing about an entrepreneur as well, that coming into Africa, coming into a place where you have to be very rigid and I'm not saying that you're just completely giving up your strict format, but you have much more to play with here, especially as a woman of color. In Africa, I find that if you come with a good business plan, you know what worked there, you know what can work here, because Zambia is fancy. It doesn't even matter what social economic you're in. From the ladies who are walking from the village, outside of the village with their cute little outfits, to everybody trying to find a way of hustling in a way where It can be sexy. It can be business driven. It can be IT focused. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things to kind of tap into now that we're here.
So let's dig into. So I was very excited when I saw the Zambrigian, the leather goods company, and this is the kind of business that I know for sure. Like when the government thinks about supporting businesses, this is exactly the kind of business that they want to see grow, right? So can you walk us through like what was the experience of setting that up? And then also like finding partners for like the supply of the leather. Like what has that journey been like? Finding artisans, was that easy? Did you have to train them? And then on to like the market?
Those are all wonderful questions. So the goal that it is a little bit challenging because you might have a tailor that seems like they know what they're doing, but let's say if you ask for a bulk order, all of a sudden it starts getting sloppy. All of a sudden they have other people that they're working with because they're trying to meet their annual budget or their monthly budget to stay alive. And all of a sudden you can see that the product is kind of dwindling. So it's really frustrating for them. I think it's also really frustrating that sometimes as a woman, I think Zambia is a very male-centered system. So I feel sometimes when you go to certain business owners or individuals who have been in Zambia for a very long time, I feel like you may not have you might have a little bit more of a pushback in regards to being firm and very decisive of what you want.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're finding that it's a very male dominated society, and a woman doing business in Zambia can be a bit of a challenge.
No, I think that it's not so much male dominated. I think there's more women who are gatekeepers, and there are a lot of wonderful CEOs here that are women, but it's still very male centered. So sometimes when you want to have a proper meeting with someone and it consists of another company or another vendor and they're male, it's actually better to have another male with you so they can do their man talk, because I feel like they do a lot of man explaining or telling what the female should get in the business format, even if that's not what you want. Even if you're very specific about what you need, they'll tell you something else and also produce something different. And I feel like that was the pushback. And it could have been because I'm not Zambian. It could have been that I'm a female. But I find that if I want something to actually really be followed up, I would have to either speak to my lawyer friend who's a male or speak to the husband and have him follow up.
You know what's funny is I've had that experience in West Africa, and it's kind of a norm here. And everybody knows to get things done, you must have a male voice, right? It comes from complicated business scenarios as well as getting your plumber to do something right, or your carpenter, right? It's much more impactful. You get things done quicker if you get a male voice on the phone, telling the person what to do, right? But I never imagined that that's also what the situation is in a place like Zambia, because in my mind, there's much more, like women have much more say culturally, I would have thought, in Zambia than in a place like Ghana.
I don't know. I think it's a taboo thing. I think that, and I always give this scenario because this is how I would kind of sum it up working, or there's a lot of pushback with a lot of different situations. They want to really be patriotic and work with other Zambians versus like a Western person. I think the world has changed quite a bit from the past 3 years to where we are now, especially when you're working with people on the continent. But when it comes to me as a female, this is my take. I could be a woman walking down the road and I can have 3 different men walking towards me with 3 different social economic backgrounds. They can be a CEO, it could be a welder, and it could also be someone who is even begging on the road. It could be any one of these men, right? And they're all walking towards me. None of them, from my experience, have ever stepped aside to allow the woman to walk. They will rather me push to the side and give them the path for them to walk, instead of any one of them saying, I'm going to step aside, in my experience. And I emphasize that because I have had many conversations with other people who have experienced that. So I feel like there is a certain level of male-centered here, and that the woman has to kind of go around in order to make a way through. And I think that's how I have done as a woman here, is figuring out how to go around certain things, to speak with the gatekeepers, maybe other women, to kind of figure out how to get what I need, or get the plumber that's going to actually do the job and follow up, or get the builder to help me build when we purchase land here, or let me figure out how I can be respected in a way where they see me as a peer versus like someone who could just be their sister, their wife, or their someone who's supposed to take care of their needs. So I think that's what I saw as an entrepreneur here, is you have to kind of maneuver in a way, because no one is trying to, especially if it's very male focused, no one is trying to step aside to like help you in. You have to kind of find a roundabout way of maneuvering.
That is interesting. So I'm Zambian, so I know that from the cultural perspective, that is what women are taught, is to be subservient and to allow men to be the lead. And so even when a woman is in charge and is the actual person running the business, men save face, right? So the woman has to help the man save face. And exactly what you're saying, but I took that to be something that is cultural and is in the homestead, but not necessarily in the business space, because when you look at the face of businesses in Zambia, I mean, a lot of the banks are led by women. We have a lot of, right. Yeah. I mean, so you kind of expect that that's not the case. Yeah.
They're the gatekeeper. They're the gatekeeper. They're the ones that's actually, it's a very, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's such a female-led.
It's very fascinating.
Work, but you still have to follow this cultural norm or you won't get through. So you have to go through the other forms of meeting wonderful women who are going to connect you, hanging out with a lot of female entrepreneurs. Majority of my events or my consultations tend to be around women who are as fabulous as I am, Zambian, and they want to kind of like have a softer life, even though they work. You know what I mean? It's I do love the hustle of Lusaka, whereas it might be different in different parts of Zambia. But in regards to Lusaka, it's definitely work, business, and money driven. It's definitely power women going to the gym and then putting on their stilettos to walk into the building, because at the end of the day, they do still want to present as very female and very feminine, because it's still very male-centered. Do you understand that?
Yes. And yes, so indeed. And women do indeed. We do, as a culture, kind of dole ourselves up because we are supposed to present as feminine, right? Even if we don't feel as feminine as that. That's,
even if you're the boss lady of the whole organization, you still have to, this prim and proper vixen, because it's still very male centered. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not so much of a bad thing. I think you can definitely tap into your femininity here, which I felt like I got a chance to have much more of a soft life, much more able to kind of look at Smiley Industries and be grateful that I'm here now, but I'm still able to have my properties back home. I'm still able to do microfinancing here, consulting, events, storytelling, and then having the leather brand company. And then also every, at one point, I'll give you an example. At one point, the reason why I love having the time to be creative in making money. I missed my parents, my mother, my family during the Christmas months. And I'm Caribbean. My mother is Jamaican and my father is from Guyana. But I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And I was like, maybe I can just do some Caribbean food. I make really great food. So I made it and someone's like, can I buy some jerk chicken from you? And I was like, you like my food so much that you want some more of it at a cost because I'm taking time to make it for you. And then I found myself every Friday cooking different Caribbean foods and people buying it. And then now, so it's like sometimes you kind of, because again, the Caribbean is so far away from Zambia, you do have other expats and you do have other Zambians who have traveled and want to have different food. Yeah. So you can find and you can
something, right? Yeah.
Something more than you think you can, even if that's not something that you would, that's not one of your artistries, but you're good at. I think being a woman in Zambia, having a little bit more time than I can say being in New York, has allowed me to explore the entrepreneurial
different avenues.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, now I throw events, I cook, and I do all of these different things here.
Mm-hmm. I was going to go into like kind of digging a little bit deeper into that entrepreneurship interaction, right, with the ecosystem, with others, right? Back to like the leather goods.
Yes.
How have you found it, the experience of finding qualified vendors, right? Finding sources for the type of leather that you need, right? Because I don't know very much about leather goods in Zambia. All I know is that we export our leather and then it's used for bags and things outside the country and then it's sold back to us. So do you find that there are supply chains already?
Yeah, so your supply chains, you have Zambeef. Zambeef is where we get the hides from. So we get the skin from Zambeef.
And it's already processed to the point that you need it.
Yes. So no, we have the skins and they actually have different where you can get your meat, you can get this, you can get that. But there's a subdivision where you can actually go and get the cow skin from Zambia and you can have it dyed, you can have it colored. They then do it there. You can even select the colors that you have based on the color that you would use. It also changes the textures of the skin. So, we range from a totally different color from orange to green to a camel color to browns to blacks. The goal is that once you have that vendor, then you have to we decided to just hire specific tailors instead of going to random tailors to help us. I think that's what we originally started. We started to kind of, let's try this person. They did a couple of bags for our market. And then we saw that their quality wasn't as good. And then we also saw because everybody uses them. So trying to just have our own individual artisans to kind of help us. We do the designs in-house. We kind of play around with different hardware and materials and zippers. And we don't get those items here. We get them either in South Africa or we can kind of get them from the States. So we have to be really mindful about the clientele that we're trying to sell it to, how much we're putting into one product so there's a proper profit.
Pricing.
Yes. And then also, if we are trying to have it shipped, I think that was the biggest struggle as well. It's like trying to find shipping companies that will work with us with a bulk prices where we can kind of get it to the States or get it to UK or get it to South Africa and or anywhere in the world. How can we do that? So I think after a lot of trial and error, a lot of frustrations, we kind of stick to certain, like we use DHL for a lot of our transporting. And I think it's reliable. It's all over the place. It's very common in Lusaka.
Yes.
So we're trying to do it in a way where it's thoughtful, it's mindful, and also profit giving.
Yes, exactly.
We have to not just
where are you finding that most of your clientele is? Is it local or is it more international? And so you end up having to DHL a lot of the produce out.
I think we do a lot. It's kind of like a mixed bag. It really depends on the season. During the holiday months, we might get a little bit more of a spike. Here in Zambia, we were selling it as well in Bonanza by the Gulf area. So we're also very strategic of where we place it. People who would actually use leather luxury brands. We don't only have a leather bags that we do, but we could do anything in leather. We can customize, we can do glasses cases, we can do chef smocks, all of these different kind of innovative ways of using the skin and making it more classy. So we've been placing it in different locations. We normally do a lot of markets in New York, and we do markets also in Massachusetts. We also have some of our items at the Collective in the airport, as well as the one in Agora. So we are very strategic about where we're placing the brand items, and we're also not over making. So we're not, we have to be very mindful of the inventory that we have, what's being sold.
So it's kind of like a just-in-time system, right? It's
exactly.
This is the order, like, and here it goes.
Exactly. Like we do have a few placed in strategic stores, but the goal is that we want to make it more personalized. And if you have anything that's leather, it's going to last forever. So, we're looking at a lot of different ways, from even like boots to belts so the goal is like, you can tell us what you need, what you want. You already know what we're capable of doing, but we're also opening up and expanding, but we have to do it in a way where there's not going to be just product just sitting down,
yes, exactly.
Sitting and waiting. And I think when you're starting off small, like us, it's the best way of doing it,
Yeah, that's I'm actually, I mean, it's wonderful that it's grown to the point where you're in all of these different places and that you have customers, because I would have expected, as often happens in Ghana, for instance, there are a lot of brands that are Ghanaian that are based here, but the bulk of their customers are not based in Ghana. They're outside of Ghana. So you kind of go, are we producing what the market locally wants, or we're selling the allure of Africa to the outside, as opposed to trying to cater to the preferences of the local market? And what is it? So in Ghana, the question is, what is it that makes it so somebody producing goods that are locally made and that are a representation of Africa, of Ghana? Why is it that they export more than they sell locally? Is it that they are fitting an aesthetic that is not African? You're selling this wonderful, or is it that it's just the price point is too high for the local market, and so it ends up going outside? So it's interesting for me that you're saying that it's a balance, definitely. Right? That both.
It is a balance. And I think that's the goal. We want to be able to meet price points here in Zambia. Again, it's very IT focused. So why not make, computer sleeves or computer bags? Because you'll always see a tech person or someone sitting in a cafe with their laptop. So when we are doing art also, like we do the ZADS market every year, whenever they have their market. So we also have price points for the people who are living here, for the international people living here, as well as Zambian individuals who decide that they want to also go to the market. And we have price points that can meet everyone. We do have price points that are a little bit more expensive because, again, remember, we're also looking at shipping costs. We're also looking at the fabric.
I imagine that is a very high cost, right? Shipping leather goods internationally.
Exactly. So we're also really mindful, like, hey, we can give you a better deal when you're local, because we're not having to spend all this additional delivery costs. We're not doing all these different kind of orders that's going to add up. So I think that's another way of looking at it as a small company, as a company that would like to grow, but also just to understand that it's being creative, being able to represent Zambia because we're here, and also because the artisans and the product are being made in Zambia.
So we've talked about the leather goods business quite a bit, and I also wanted to kind of look at, you've talked about, events management, consulting, etc. Has it been easy setting up all of these? And which one would you say has been easier to set up, and why?
Yeah. So the leather brand is just like, you already know. It's a whole process. It's a whole program. But with the consultations, it's like you have to network. You have to meet people. You have to meet the right people. You have to see whether or not if they think that you're capable of doing an event that they want, or you leading them into wanting to do an event that would fit the vibe that they're trying to do. So like me growing up in New York, we would do a lot of these day parties, these brunch events. 4.5 years ago, I was like, I'm going to do brunch events for grown people. The goal is that grown people want to have a wonderful time. They want to have the same elements as it is in the evening. Beautiful people, beautiful outfits, music, food, drink. But the difference is that they want to actually go home at a proper time. And I believe that. And I think I incorporated that here.
As a grown person, yes.
A grown person. Brunch, having a day party with the DJ, with the vibes, I would normally have it and do like a grown and sexy vibes, or just day brunch event parties. And it would be from 11 to 4 p.m. because everybody wants brunch. Everybody wants to be out. Everyone wants to enjoy themselves. And I saw that it was like a thing. Like I started to get more and more people coming in. And the last one I did was in April. And we had it. And, we try to do it as an exclusive event, a different location every time, and like-minded souls. And we got a lot of mixed people. We got a lot of like local Zambian entrepreneurs and office people and creators. And then we also got a lot of like international expats coming in and enjoying it and enjoying the vibe and blending and eating food. And I think now, all of a sudden now, I don't do it too often, but I do it annually. Now you're starting to see it pop up everywhere. And originally, the husband would say, why don't you do this every other month? And I was like, it's so much work.
It is, isn't it?
So much work. Because I may be a follow-up individual, but when you're hiring people here and when you're asking of a certain level of quality, I think customer service is slowly starting to get to where it should be, but it's a really hard challenge in Zambia. It's a hard challenge, usually in some African countries. So the customer service component has been what I had more of. There's a lot of me involved in it. There's a lot of me making sure I'm doing the checks and balancing and managing people in ways that I don't necessarily think it would be so stressful in other countries. So I think that was the reason why I kind of pushed back a little bit on not doing events every week or every month or every other month. I found that it is very draining to manage people who are not used to checks and balance or follow up, or they can just walk out and that's it. It's a different feel.
Yeah.
So that would be the challenges. Yeah, that would be the challenges with events. And, you don't know whether or not someone's going to have the funds they have this quarter that they did last quarter. You know what I mean? You really want to kind of hone in on a certain clientele that's going to be guaranteed, which is the reason why when I would look at my clients coming in, they're usually the business owners. There's usually the hotel owners. And I usually tend to do it on a Sunday or Monday, especially if there's a holiday and they get to have off on a Monday. Because usually companies or restaurant owners, they get to close on Sunday or Monday. And they never get a chance to party and hang out. So the goal was, my framework was cater to those individuals. Let them, who are always dealing with people, have a break and enjoy their time. So that was a clientele. So I was very, very specific on the clientele that I wanted to work.
So in the end, it's like the events piece is what has been kind of easier to grow, right? The leather goods a little bit more complicated, and I would actually I would expect that that's the case.
Yeah, especially with like the being who I am, I can manage it, but I think the frustration is more or less having making sure people are on the same page of your quality assurance or your customer service. I think that has been the hardship. But once you meet people, they know you're capable, they believe in you. You find that a lot of people would love to kind of say, hey, would you mind helping me with this? Or can you recommend this? And you all of a sudden you find that people are calling you for certain kind of qualities. Oh, can you just tell me, I have a group of people coming in from outside of Zambia. This is the vibe that we want. Can you help me locate or have this event with them? Or I've done something for the Japanese embassy, one of the people who work there. I've done a couple of kids parties. I've just done a lot of different things, but also still centered on the parent enjoying it as much as the child, or the adults enjoying it, where they feel like customer service is a higher standard. And I think that will keep you in business.
Okay, that's cool. So then in general, if you look at what your journey has been like, founding these companies and running these, these businesses, what would you say has been the biggest challenge of all of them? Like, what has been the hardest thing to figure out? And that has been like a particular thing in the country.
Yeah. So I think that I would say this. Growing up, my father said you would always have a job in healthcare. So get in healthcare, and which is what I did. I was never the person who actually wanted to have all these little side businesses because I felt that it was so much work. So I was really content with helping people mold their policies for an organization and then also implementing and following it versus actually being the person who has to have different jobs all the time.
Yes.
Like you would always be.
It's like extending yourself in all these different ways at the same time.
Exactly. So I feel like that is the hardest, being in Zambia and being an entrepreneur, because I am a resident here, but I'm underneath a spousal permit for my husband. It's really, you have to make a job. You have to make money. You have to figure out how to have money coming in, because you can't just go to an organization and say, hey, hire me. I'm very qualified. Because they're looking to be more patriotic and hire internal candidates from the country who are Zambian. So,
when you look at the, compared to like other African countries that I have lived in, so places like lived in or visited places like, let's say Ghana, let's say Nigeria, let's say Rwanda, I would say that the population of foreign non-Zambian employees that I see, the proportion to me appears to be like much higher than the rest of the continent, right? So like in my mind, it must be really easy to settle in and to find a job and to be hired. But I guess it's not quite like that, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. Especially during any kind of election season, or especially around time they want to put more emphasis on having Zambian do the Zambian job. You get it. You get that. But it's a challenge, because if it was up to me, I would be a part of an organization that helps build different programs, who I would continue to do my advocacy. But now I have to do my advocacy in different ways that still help others, but also helping me financially. And I think when you are an entrepreneur, you're kind of set where I don't want to be with an organization. I want to have this free flow. This could be this one way this year. And I think that's great for many people who have that, but that's not how I started off. I had to get,
that is a very interesting point, right? Because part of the argument in entrepreneurship scholarship is that the reason that there aren't many businesses in places in Africa, in the global south, that are successful and that are long-term and that are big, right, that are innovative and are growing, is because the bulk of the entrepreneurs that we have are the so-called necessity entrepreneur. They would rather be in an office employed, like what you said, like this is what you were raised to do, is to be in an office and to be employed and to get a salary every month. And I'm fine with that. Just pay me well. I will come to work every day and I don't want to take on the risk of being a business owner, right? But it's interesting that you were raised that way. And yet when you were placed in a situation where you had to kind of figure it out, you've managed to grow all of these different things, right? Out of your, even out of just, being there and seeing the opportunity that's there.
And I think it has a lot to do with maturity. I think it also when you have children, it's like you can't risk them, and when you're an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker. You're taking a risk on something that you're not guaranteed that will work for you next year.
Exactly.
So having grown up in a very conservative setting, again, I'm first generation American. My father was in medical. My mother is in social and healthcare. All of these things I saw them give their 10 children a home, education, but they were structured on what they needed to do. So I think my children have that foundation, but I think that which I like, now they see that you can be creative as well. You can have a creative pathway, but you also have to make sure that aligns with who you are as an individual. And, when I first moved here, and my kids always knew me to be the workaholic, running back and forth and having really complex cases. My son said to me, "Mommy, why don't you try to take helicopter lessons?" And the fact that he can believe that I can be a helicopter pilot was really profound to me.
Right. Yes. Mommy can do anything.
And that's the mentality that I've been trying to embody since I've been here. I've been trying to open up and not be as conservative in thought the way that I was raised. I'm also
and so
less.
Right. And I would add to that probably what has made that possible for you is having the stability of a second income in the home, right? So then you have this opportunity to explore, and it can fail, and okay, then we can try again, right? Because there is like some element of stability in the home.
Yeah, the stability is that we have property.
Financially.
I have property in the States that I rent out. I have tenants. I have a foundation of saving that I have believed in. I have a foundation of working my butt off since I was 14. When I got my work permit, that's when you can work. I was 14, still going to school. My dad actually died when I was 17. And my mother worked really, really hard. And she actually started working like 16-hour days. And I said, "You're not going to be a millionaire. You need to kind of like cut it down."
Exactly.
But I saw that she didn't tap into her creativity. I saw that she wasn't doing the things that she was happy with. And another reason why moving out of America was because I am a little bit more of a risk taker, even though I thought that I wasn't. Me even taking this chance, me even having a family this day and age, me even saying, let me chuck it all. Even the connections that I've made allow people to say, "Oh, this family could be great to watch." I'm officially a storyteller of Americans moving and actually having a success story outside of America, that it's actually possible. So at the end of it all, when my son told me that I can be a helicopter pilot, because he knows that I would save him if the zombies came, I say to him Thank you for believing in me. Now I have to believe in myself. Now I can, hey, somebody wants to use my skills and talents. I may not have an organization that I'm working with now, but I can still make money. I can still find a way.
Yes.
And I think that's the brain you must have in order to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to say, I can do it.
Yes.
I can figure it out.
And even if it fails, I can try again.
I can jump back and figure out.
Exactly. There's the background of, unfortunately for most, there isn't the financial stability, giving you the opportunity to fail and go again and fail and go again. But if you do have that, then, it's wonderful. Just try. And if it fails, then, go back and do it again.
I mean, that's a blessing, but that also took connection building. That took setting a huge foundation with a conservative structured organization of companies for years, being able to make the right decisions of where I should live before I got married or when I got married, how I should invest. In order for me to actually have future stability, I had to actually put the work in. And I think sometimes people think I can do this and then I can just be a star. It's like, you don't know how much work was put in. I may look really relaxed, but you don't necessarily know how much work.
There's been work in the background. Yeah.
The foundation in order for me to have a little bit more of a free flowing lifestyle, And I think that is something this generation has to understand, that I know it's hard for them in different ways than it was hard for me growing up, or like trying to make it a way. But I remember working at a nonprofit, an Article 16 clinic, which deals with like special need individuals. And I think I had just finished my undergrad and I was only making $28,000 a year. Like that was what I was making. And this was years ago. And I still remember having responsibility of paying for the family plan, which seemed very expensive on a cell phone. I didn't even want one, but then my younger sister needed it. Knowing that I needed to help my mother because my father had passed away. Knowing that as the eldest daughter, there's a level of responsibility that you have, which means that you're going to be conservative anyway, unless you just don't care. So, when you grow and you realize the foundation that you've been placed in, because sometimes it's where your position is as well in life, and who my parents were and how hard they worked for, I realized like, I just didn't want my children to have that. I knew that once I get everything locked in, I can go anywhere else. They can have a different life. And I've slowly been doing that, even inside America. But now that we're outside, my children have traveled. They understand they can have a totally different life. And that comes with freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say that that's also something that I'm grateful for, right? It's the being able to expose my child to more than like a standard life, right? And learning by being, as opposed to learning by, being told. So I think that's actually quite, yeah. And on those profound words, I think I should probably.
Yeah. But I said, even look at you. You're a phenomenal woman. You hang out in wonderful book clubs. You know?
See how I'm smiling? Phenomenal.
Yeah. You're working on this amazing podcast that's very interesting that I think a lot of people will love to hear. You're focused on higher education. Your child is very well grounded and kind, and you're still giving them the luxuries, but also not making sure they know, don't take this for granted. So I think that as much as, there's so many entrepreneurial components of living a free and positive life. But if you tap it into just try to make money, you can do it if you just sit down and think and figure out what you're good at, your skills are.
Yeah.
And you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, I am trying. I'm trying. Okay, perfect. So I was saying before on those profound words, I think what I typically do with the podcast is at the end, I kind of ask, is there a business idea that you would get into today that you're like, this is such an opportunity. It's untapped. If I had like the time or the money, I would do that. Is there something other than what you're already doing that you're going in Zambia? This is so, this could be something.
Yeah. So I really have been interested in more of the arts, more of the executive coaching. I feel like there's a lot of leaders, a lot of my peers who sometimes come to me in ways where they kind of just need a little bit more guidance, a little bit more oneness in understanding the direction. So I think with what I would like to do in the future is use my skills to help people transition into the next stage of whatever their life might be, whether or not it's providing coaching for an IT company who's starting up, or looking at different development and business models. I think I kind of really want a little bit of the conservative component with the entrepreneurship. So I want the freedom of selecting clients, but I want it to be where the clients are established. They need guidance or development or a strategic plan. And I want to be that individual that helps them get that, and the people that they should hire or they should train up. And I think that's the goal for this coming year.
Wonderful. And I hope that it works out, that you find the right kind of companies for that to grow. Yeah.
I hope so too. You gotta believe.
Thank you so much, Elaine.
Oh, thank you so much.